Megan?
Oh, hello.
You're on.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And thanks for joining us for the Board of County Commissioners Board work session. This one for July 22nd, 2020 is Utility Consolidation Study. This is an informational meeting or briefing, and we are in this for 1 hour. So by way of introduction, I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board, and also with us is Vice Chair Commissioner Ty Menser, County Manager Ramiro Chavez, and I see Public Works Director Jennifer Walker. I don't know if Robin Campbell is joining us or not. And we have Water Resource Manager, is it? Supervisor Tim Wilson, and we have Karen Weiss, who's going to solve all of our problems for us today. So do you want to frame this, Ramiro? Did I miss anybody?
Yeah, Marcy Taylor is with us.
Oh, I don't see Marcy. So thank you, Marcy Taylor.
I just want to make sure that I mentioned her name.
We need to.
Got in trouble a week ago.
We have one more person as well, Zainab Nahaji.
Yeah.
Oh, welcome. Well, Dana. And for the public consumption, if you'd like to join us via conference call, the phone number is 360-252-9020, extension 1234. So, Ramiro, it's yours.
Let me just frame this briefing, commissioners. As you know, the Public Works manages and operates several sewer and water utilities across the county. And each one of those utilities have their own budget and their own operating parameters. What you will be hearing today, a study that Public Works conducted to see the opportunities, options, and perhaps threats and opportunities to perhaps consolidate all the utilities in the county and see where we go from there. Jennifer?
Yeah, thank you. This was based off of a request that the board made of the department. I want to say maybe a year or so ago, and so we're following up on the study that was conducted, the results of that. And so Tim and Zainab have been working hard on this, and I think Tim's are you taking the lead, or is Zainab taking the lead?
Yeah, I can take the lead, but Zainab will probably need to bail me out as well.
Okay.
Yes, so Jennifer's right. So this briefing is in response to board direction to investigate the feasibility of consolidating our water and sewer utilities. And that was to primarily achieve 3 objectives. And those were to look at operational efficiencies, stability in rates, and improvement in long-range planning. So the investigation has at least 2 phases. We're considering this the first phase, and this briefing is considered a check-in along the way, if you will, just to let you know where we're at. So the bottom line up front is Public Works contracted with HDR, Engineering Incorporated, to provide a feasibility study, and that feasibility study was to determine if, from a legal and regulatory standpoint, consolidation of our utilities was feasible. The determination that came out of that feasibility study is that, yes, it is indeed feasible. Whether we want to pursue that or not is another question. We are feeling at this point that that the benefits outweigh the setbacks, and we would like to proceed with the continuation of our investigation. So just to back up, the current, let me roll in here. Sorry about that. Forgot about the PowerPoint. So the current status of our utilities, as you'll recall, there's seven separate utilities in 4 communities. Grand Mound has both a water and sewer utility, as does Tamishan and Boston Harbor. And then we have a small sewer utility out at Olympic View. the key considerations of this feasibility study, 6 main categories we looked at, or they looked at: management and administration of the utilities, operation and maintenance, budgeting and accounting, the rates and charges, and just the regulatory and legal components of that.
Hey, Tim,
Yes.
would it be possible for you to share your screen? I'm sure you're walking through the PowerPoint. So the public can see, that would be helpful.
Can you see that?
Yes, yeah, that's good, thank
I
you.
apologize. I was rolling through thinking I was sharing, so apologies.
Thank you. That's perfect. I was writing questions already, so I wasn't even watching.
So the potential benefits that were outlined in the study are primarily budget and accounting, but also management and administration. So if you think about it just in terms of the amount of time is put into tracking time between the different utilities and the budgets for that, that's a lot of time. Administrative and regulatory reporting as well is a considerable task. There's currently 7 utilities, but there's, I believe, 10 funds within those utilities that we have to actively manage. So potentially, by going the route of utility consolidation, we could consolidate into 2 utilities, 1 water and 1 sewer utility. It would potentially reduce a lot of time and effort that's put into the budgeting, accounting portion of that, which Karen may want to speak to. It will also potentially insulate from volatility within the different funds. We have some utilities with a very small ratepayer base, subject to volatility, and it is thought that by spreading that out over a bigger base, we can reduce that volatility. Karen, anything you want to add on the budgeting and accounting portion of it?
No, Tim, I think you covered it. It's just, it is the amount of different funds, 10 different funds. Robin could probably speak to this as well, just how much time is spent by staff tracking their time. Their time card can be multiple lines long, and truly the value from a financial, accounting, and accuracy standpoint becomes much more valuable if you're not trying to allocate things out to a number of different funds. So.
Okay, so some potential drawbacks to be aware of as we move forward with investigating this is just whether there would be rate inequity among the utilities. Or some systems more costly to operate than others. The continuation of this, the next steps that we'll talk about would delve into this a little bit, as well as just from a customer perception, will it be perceived that some utilities are subsidizing others if we were to move forward? Another potential drawback or something to be aware of is just that some aspects of the utilities cannot be combined. We cannot combine water rights. We cannot combine water system plans. So even though there would likely be significant efficiencies, we wouldn't be able to completely consolidate. So the next steps that we would like to proceed with is we would like to move forward with the process. The alternatives to that would be either to delay or stop the consolidation process. The next step would be, that was identified by HDR, would be to conduct a cost of services study. So the cost of service study would be used to equitably distribute costs among customer classes and to assist with determining rate structures within the consolidated utility. In order to do that, we would need to build that into the 2021-2022 budget, which we've already begun the process of doing that. And we would need to issue an RFP and select a consultant for that task. The other portion of that would be to actively engage the UACs, Utility Advisory Committees, educate and inform them, bring them up to speed on our intention and the outcome of the feasibility study and what we know to date, and to hopefully gain their support moving forward. And with that brief summary, I would open it up for questions.
Commissioner Mentor, you have any questions?
I don't think so. Well, one question was just, I know you, just off the top of your head, is there one particular system that's much more expensive to operate, or on the flip side, way cheaper than the others that would bear this subsidization, I can't say that word, subsidization perception that might be hit unfairly or benefit differently? Just off the top of your head, I mean, is Boston Harbor super expensive for some reason, or Tamashan or whatever?
Tamashan comes to mind, and I would ask Karen to chime in on this too, but Tamashan comes in to my mind as the expensive utility.
Correct. Our rates on a monthly basis for the customers, for a residential customer, range from a low of around $150 a month, and that's in Grand Mound, up to more than $250 in Tamashan. A lot of that has to do with, well, two things: the customer base, and the fact that in Grand Mound that customer base is growing and also includes commercial. But it also in Tamashan, particularly specifically it's the age of the infrastructure and the infrastructure improvements that are being needed to be made in the short term. I think we've heard pretty consistently, and Tim, this is where I'd look to you or Zainab to confirm that over time, those infrastructure costs sort of even out. And though somebody, when you're looking at a life cycle analysis, somebody might be paying more in the immediate future, but in the long-term future, their costs would increase. So this spreading it out among the three and or four utilities, depending on if we're talking about water or sewer, actually kind of averages out for the ratepayers over the long term. And I think there is a blueprint for us to consider this and stabilize those rates and bring them more in alignment. I know the Thurston PUD has done this, and they've done it in a phased in approach. So nobody has like a huge increase in a short period of time. They over time make them more equal. So, like I said, there are a few models for us to draw from.
Yes, Karen, you characterize that accurately. Over the long term, the idea is, 50 years down the road, Grand Mound's infrastructure is going to be older and they're going to need more repairs. So then, and then at that point, Tamashan, because we've done all this refurbishment, they would then be paying towards kind of Grand Mound's improvements. And the other thing to consider is that the part of what the rate study will do is look at different rate structures. So you could also look at a situation where maybe everyone is paying the same O&M rate, but then there is a capital cost rate that varies between the different utilities.
Is that it, Ty? Okay. I've got one or two, actually I have 6 questions. And I'm going to refer to page number, but you don't have to go back to the page number. But on page 3, you talked about the 4 different systems. Where is Olympic View?
Olympic View is, it is North County.
Northeast?
Yes. So the closest street, Zainab, can you help with that? I'm looking at the map and I'm seeing them on the map, but I would have to get up and go look to.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see if it's District 1 or 2, because I don't know where it is.
It is, oh gosh, up directly north of like Evergreen, the Evergreen State College.
Oh, Northwest. Okay, so that's going to be Ty.
Yeah.
Just, okay, got it. Thank you. And next question, and this refers to page, no, it doesn't refer to any page. You kind of answered this, but how does consolidating or the consolidation impact personnel? By that I mean the number of personnel, the workload, and do we have to hire any more? Is there consolidation? What are the efficiencies in this?
Well, it looked as if most of the efficiencies would not be on the boots on the ground, would not be on the operations side of things, but it would be more the budget and accounting portion of it and the administrative portion of it.
Okay.
I would say the boots on the ground are going to have more time to spend out on the ground because I think they spend a fair amount of time in the office putting in their time cards, which may sound silly, but I'd be happy to share a time card with you sometime for one of the operators so you can see the number of entries they're having to make on a daily basis.
So what it's doing is actually freeing up labor hours. So it's less labor hours spent handling administrative type items and more hours freed up to do maintenance and operations and other activities within the finance group.
Well, if the system or process can change to make it easier for them, I'm all for that too. That seems to be a time savings and more efficient way to do business, and more job satisfaction rather than stay and do that stupid paperwork.
Well, and less money spent on the actual administration, right? So if we're freeing up labor hours, it's less money being spent administering those. It's actually, I think, 12 different funds.
Okay, thank you. And on
and multiple advisory groups that are being at least, 2 very active advisory groups and another homeowners association that comes into play. And so you're doing, we're doing reporting to them on either a monthly or a bi-monthly basis in meetings. It used to be in person, but that also is bringing in your operations supervisor to have those conversations with all of those various advisory committees. So there is some, again, labor savings in terms of that. You're spending more time focused on the infrastructure needs and the utility needs itself, as opposed to multiple management administration type tasks.
Can you actually see my paper? Because that was my next question is, how many advisory groups or committees do we have? So I thought Tim said we can create them. And I thought, do we have them already, or is it creating from scratch? How many do we have? And they're already, or do we have to create more?
Well, that is something we would explore. We currently have advisory groups for Boston Harbor and Tamashan. Zainab, I'm not sure if we have an active UAC for Olympic View or not.
We do not.
But we do not.
Their homeowners association acts as their advisory group when we go to do public outreach and things for utility rate increases, for example.
Okay. So just be educate and inform those groups that are there.
Mm-hmm.
What were you gonna say, Tim?
Well, I was just gonna say that's one of the considerations that was discussed in the study is just, how to move that forward. Would there continue to be multiple UACs, or would there be some efficiency gained by attempting to combine that into one UAC as well? So that's something we would consider going forward. And as Karen says, it's just multiple meetings to manage, multiple groups, and I think there's efficiencies there.
And you also mentioned, Tim, we can stop or delay the process. So my question is, it's already in progress, and how deep are we into that process? Or in the study of just looking at consolidating?
Well, so I believe, Karen, help me. I think we've spent about $27,000 or $28,000 so far on the HDR study, the feasibility study. Is that correct, Karen?
I would have to go and look. I don't know off the top of my head.
I did look at our spreadsheet prior to this meeting, and I think we're in the $27,000 range. We are requesting a budget for the next phase in the $65,000 range to do the cost of service analysis, which is in a little more depth. As we come out of that, and as we come out of the process of engaging the UACs and getting a feel for their temperature and where they are with this, we would be basically to the point where we, I believe, could identify funds and start the consolidation process if we chose to do that at that point.
And where's that money come from? And the next question is, if we consolidate, does that create a new budget line?
Well, I can speak to where the money comes from. I believe it is spread out among from the utility rates of all the utilities is how we have funded the process so far. As far as the new fund, I'll let Karen speak to that.
So, and I did go look, you're right, Tim, it's about within $29,000 that we've incurred so far. So good memory. So I think part of the question is, I'll look even to Robin for some of this, but I mean, we would be taking and making two utilities, a water utility and a sewer utility. And my expectation is we probably would establish two new funds so we could track those. We'd now have a water operations and a sewer operations. And then we'd probably have a discussion about whether or not we wanted to look at a separate reserve fund or not. And that would be part of the consideration process. But I wouldn't expect to use our existing multiple funds to build off that. I would think we would start with some sort of consolidated new fund.
Robin, is that accurate? Is that correct?
Yes, that would be my expectation as well.
Oh, you got it.
Big part of the point is to not have to account with all of these small funds.
Okay, and I'll wrap up before I get to Ty. Is staff recommending consolidation? And then going to your last slide, Tim, next steps. What are the next steps? What's the process? Public hearing and more study, and where are we in that time frame in the process if that's where your recommendation is? And it sounds like it is.
So it is our recommendation at this point, and the next step would be to build this into the budget, which we're already taking steps to do that. And if the budget is approved, then we would develop an RFP and select a consultant to move forward with this study.
Okay. Is a public hearing required for this or not by consolidating these systems or utilities?
I think down the road there may be a public hearing required. I would have to check on that.
I don't know either, but I do know if we were considering some sort of a rate structure, which we would be doing as a part of this, to the impact of the rates itself, they would have a public hearing for that piece of it. But I don't know about the consolidation itself. I think we're still really early on. It's hard for us to make. We were basically looking at, is it feasible? Can we legally move forward with it? Is it a possibility? I think the next really key factor is this cost of services study to see if we even could come up with some sort of a rate or financial structure that would enable us to move forward.
Okay. Good, thank you. Ty?
I just wanted to point out that I guess the thing that attracts me about the idea is the rate stability aspect. I know Commissioner Hutchings and I have both sat on the LOT board, and what's really great about LOT is that 65,000 ratepayers, and they can even though there's massive capital fluctuation and needs and stuff, they can just fine tune that rate, and it's spread over so many people that they can raise a lot of money for their needs and just smooth out any sort of spiky. And of course, we're not going to have that kind of power, but the smaller systems that you have and the smaller customer base, you just get the potential for real problems and real spikes. So any effort to smooth that out for folks, I think over the long term helps them budget and then helps us be more efficient. So it makes sense to me.
Okay. Romero, please.
I just have a question, maybe for Tim. Out of the $28,000 the HDR spent, and you're making a reference of the study, the feasibility study they conducted, what was the deliverables of that study?
So the deliverables, I would have to look back, and Zainab's probably going to be able to chime in and help me out here. But the deliverables were to look at, basically to determine if from a regulatory standpoint and from a legal standpoint, it's feasible to do this. They didn't really dig in a lot of depth to what the efficiencies would be in terms of management or O&M or the budget and accounting, but more of what it could look like in terms of outreach and managing the UACs or where that could go. They touched a little bit on what rate structures could look like, but the meat of it, if you will, was legally and regulatory from Department of Health, Department of Ecology standpoint, the state auditor. Can we potentially do this? And Zainab, if you have anything to add, please do.
No, and I think that, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that they submitted a report, I guess is what I think of when I think of deliverable. So I don't know if that was shared with everyone.
No, I assume there was a report, but that's the physical deliverable. But within the deliverable, what the consultant was tasked to do. But I think Tim addressed that question, because even when I was in Jennifer's position, the legal aspect was always a question, whether the consolidation could be legally sustainable, but it appears that was addressed on the report. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so and that, to me, that seems to be a big hurdle to overcome this. So yeah, thank you.
Is that it? Anybody else want to add any information or ask any questions?
I would just say, to your point, Romero, I mean, in the study itself, they did outreach to the state auditor's office. They did outreach to the Department of Health. They reached out to the Department of Ecology, the state of Washington to do exactly what you said, research whether or not this is feasible and get that input from all of those different entities that have some, oversight or authority over the utility, and receive the answer from all of them that this is something that we could move forward with.
Okay.
And I think,
go ahead.
and also provided somewhat of a roadmap of an example of how this has been done by Thurston County PUD as well. So it's not as if maybe we would be breaking new ground either.
So
Go ahead, Romero.
And I guess that will probably be my second question, and mainly addressing the timeline. And mainly for Commissioner Hutchins, I think he was asking when the public hearing will occur, because the consolidation, the next steps, if the board decides to continue with this process, really we're looking probably a year plus before a consolidation can occur. Is that the timeline the consultant provided at least, or is longer?
It potentially, I'm going to jump in, so correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but I think it potentially could be longer. We'll have to see, because really this is an informational briefing.
Right,
our
right.
ask is coming during the budget process. So this is to inform you of what the policy request is going to be in the budget process. And so if that is approved, then we would be able to move forward with the next step next year.
And
after budget
they
is
provide a timeline and a proposed timeline, and it was thought to, if we were to move forward and look at the feasibility of the rate structure, et cetera, it would be something that we would probably be ready to implement with the next biennial budget build, so the 23-24
Yeah.
biennium.
And that's probably the additional information that I was hoping to hear is really the consolidation study. If the board approves, it will be just the next step, but the actual implementation will not occur for a longer period of time.
Correct.
Yep, thank you.
Like about a year out,
Actually, what you heard is probably 2 years.
2 years, okay.
Do we know what this budget ask is going to be? Is it another 28,000 or significantly more or less than the original feasibility?
As of right now, we have a policy level request in for 65,000. And we're needing to do some research. We have a little bit of feedback from a previous consultant, but we need to do a little more work there. But we do anticipate that it's going to be a little bit bigger lift than the feasibility study. So we accounted for that.
I might also say that if we do a cost of services study, there, regardless of whether we go forward with consolidation or not, there's going to be value for us in that, because we have not looked at our rates and our rate structure for a very long time. And I think we have all talked internally about the fact that that is something that we want to be looking at, even if we were to stay in our current configuration. So, you know, to the point about that investment, it is going to pay long-term dividends, whichever way we decide to go on the consolidation.
Which agreed, which I also think fits into our strategic asset management initiative, and looking at what it is that we have, what is the life cycle cost, what are those levels of service, what does it cost, what is the replacement cost, that type of thing.
Okay. Once around the room, anybody else? Nope. Zainab, Marcy, Karen, Jennifer, Tim, thank you all very much. Jennifer, you got a great team of professionals.
I know, I'm very lucky.
You're very fortunate, yes. If there's nothing else, you want to end this, Ramiro? Do you have any words of wisdom?
No, this is timely, so you will see a policy level request, as you stated, as part of the budget process, and at that point, the board will determine next steps.
And I think it's a great idea to consolidate. It just seems better, like a better idea, better way to do things. So thank you all very much. Be safe, and I will see you, or we will get together next time. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.